Alexis, welcome to the Business of Innovation podcast at Clemson MBA, and we're delighted that you're here.
Thank you, Ken. Very pleased to be here.
You are the president of Michelin North America, and I've been reading about you and very much looking forward to talking with you. You have a different background, I think, than sometimes the president of Michelin North America. So tell me a little bit about how you got to be in this role.
That's a broad question. I joined the company 17 years ago.
Okay.
And Michelin is a fantastic company because we really care about our people. And I've been really enjoying my time in Michelin. I've been holding, I think, 7 positions so far. Mm-hmm. And I had always the pleasure to rotate between operational position and strategic positions. Okay. And this was really interesting how the group provided me with this development, because it gives you at the end a certain level of balance between strategy and operation, between strategy and execution. Mm-hmm. And the famous quotes to say it's better to have maybe a B strategy perfectly executed than an A strategy poorly executed. Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of balance I'm always looking for. But I learned a lot over the last 17 years with Michelin. It was a great experience.
What's the experience like being president? Because you've been in that role now for a couple of years, year and a half?
I've been, almost 1 year now. I joined the region in June.
Okay.
In June now. It's a very exciting moment for me, because we're experiencing in the mobility business we are in a huge transformation. And to that transformation in our market environment, we have an internal transformation that is extremely exciting. We are passionate about people. Mm-hmm. By nature. Michelin was founded by 2 brothers, mm-hmm. more than 130 years ago. And this culture is very well present today. And we're just working now at shaping this culture. So really to prepare the group and our employees, our people, to what's ahead of us. Because again, our environment is changing very fast in the mobility business. You've heard about electrification, you heard about hydrogen, and we're investing massively in those domains so that we can give people a better way forward, mm-hmm. Which is our purpose. And we're working again hard to get prepared to the future of mobility.
You were named by Forbes magazine #1 best place to work. How do you feel about that, and what has it meant to your organization?
It meant a lot. I think we tend to underestimate, and that may sound intriguing for some of our people or globally speaking in the environment, but people are really at the heart of everything what we do. Mm-hmm. And that technology is available everywhere. You can do whatever you want with technology today, but I think our people makes at the end the difference. And when I was at ICAR in Clemson, it was, I think, in November, I was proposed or presented some project you have around how to use technology to modelize aerodynamics. And it came to my mind, this comment I made to the team at the time, to say that if maybe 10 years ago the technology was the limiting factor of our evolution, I think today that the human being is the limiting factor, because the technology is so powerful now, mm-hmm. that we need to take care about our people to get used to that and to be prepared for this next technological move. So that's why I think focusing on our people is by far the most important thing I can do today as president of Michelin North America.
It's very moving to hear you say that about your culture, and to be such an interpersonal leader. And I'm quoting from an article that I read about you, and have, I guess, you're over almost 20,000 people.
Yes,
that's a huge responsibility, and the connectivity into those individuals. But I did have a quote that was given to me by someone who says, "You make every person feel like the most important person in the room. You have a talent for inspiring others and making them feel valued. You are determined to make improvements for the customers and employees, and our first metrics show this is starting to work. You're very observant and perceptive, and you figured out this odd culture in a short time." What do you think about that? Is that you?
Well, you catch me by surprise, but I guess if it's what the people are perceiving, because at the end, perception is reality, as you know. I'm proud to hear that, because I think that's at least who I am, and if I'm able to convey this message to our people, I think that's a huge win for mm-hmm. us. Because again, I think everyone is important in the company. I'm used to say that whatever you're doing at Michelin, and it applies to each one of us in our life, we are all leaders. You know, there are great discussions about what is leadership and who is a great leader. I think we are all leaders, and I truly mean it. It's just a question of broadness of this leadership. And you may drive a region like I do, you may drive a plant, you may drive a team, you maybe also drive a very important project, or you may be the expert of a given domain. But in each one of those individuals are leaders because they have a part of leadership to express. And I think my role today is to make sure that I can help each one of our employees to reveal and to develop this part of leadership that is embedded in front of each one of them.
So the empowerment of each individual
Absolutely.
is important to you, and their unique purpose and goals and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I have a very different perspective on the leadership versus the hero. You know, we love to assimilate leaders with heroes, but I think, at least what I think, and that's very personal, I think the leader needs to be very anchored in the reality, needs to be close to his or her people, so that he can really understand what is at stake for the people, and then connect with what he may see abroad or in the global environment to what he feels inside the company, so that I can work on, or the leader can work every day to get that closer, so that at the end we feel comfortable to cope with what's ahead and get prepared for the next turnaround. What
inspired you to be at, or how did you come to be at Michelin?
I think the first reason, and that's still the one reason why I'm working for this great group today, is the passion for people. From day one in 2002, September 2002, when I met for the first time people from Michelin, you feel there is a culture. There is something here very specific that was, I think, built by the founders, again, 130 years ago. And this culture, now I've been, I think, traveling in 32, 33 countries throughout the world with Michelin. And I can tell you, wherever you go, Greenville, it could be Las Vegas here, it could be Mexico, China, Thailand, Indonesia, you have the same culture. This passion for people, passion for customers.
Wow.
And that's something that is very important to me. You know, the purpose and why you're here and the culture of a company is something that makes a difference at the end.
What do you feel like is that you love the most about your current role? Because it sounds like you're doing a lot of traveling and you're involved with a lot of different people and sections of the company.
I think it comes from when I was younger. When I was younger, I was very challenging. You could hardly put me in a box and saying this is what you need to do and how to do that. I've been always challenging and trying to think about how to do things differently, because I think what was done till now was probably good, but there may be other ways, and so I've always been trying to do things differently, and this is why I got a sense for broad responsibilities pretty early, because I think the broader is your ability to embrace complexity, the more, I think, for me, it feeds my appetite for curiosity. I'm very curious as a person. I like to learn, I like to discover. And I think, to make it short, if you combine in the same individuals a certain ability to challenge the status quo, and at the same time a passion for learning, and this is how Michelin helped me to develop, by the way. I think this is why I'm here at this kind of position, because you have this complexity and you have this broad view over the company and over our people, and that's really exciting. That's fascinating.
So the curiosity is really when do you get your best ideas? I'm just curious.
When I'm discussing with people.
Yeah, okay.
And most of the time, 90%, it's when discussing, when interacting with people, then it pops up in my mind, or I say I connect the dots. I'm listening a lot. I like to observe people and hear at people, and you receive some. When you do that in a project, in a management situation, you receive signals, and at the end, once you have 3, 4, 5 signals that are consistent, then you may have an idea. And that's why I say that. I think, again, that a leader gets as much inspired by his team or her team that he could inspire his team or her team, because that's a bilateral relation, I think.
What are you most proud of in your career thus far?
Wow, that's a deep question. I think I'm proud of what I've been achieving so far in Michelin, but I would say every day I have a source of personal pride, because every day every time I can help a team going through a difficulty or asking the right questions so that they can get richer out of the meeting than when they were entering the meeting, that's for me a source of accomplishments, you know. So whether it's pride, accomplishment, I don't know, but this is why I come every day, every morning to Michelin with a lot of fun and happiness, because that's where I get the energy every day. And I try to also give some energy to others, but I get some energy myself, yeah.
And so the questions are really important, aren't they? Asking the right questions,
Absolutely.
rich questions really do get the wheels turning usually for other people and for ourselves as well.
I think you're spot on, Gail. I think the leader does not have always the answer. And I think that if you're a good leader, you should probably ask 90% of your time questions and maybe only 10% giving directions, because you're on a situation that is maybe difficult or where you need at the end to make the final call because it has a huge impact. And that's part of the responsibility you have one day. But 90%, if you can just ask questions to make sure your team have understood the situation on its whole and make sure they do not overlook one thing, so that you can share everything you saw before, all the signals you have in mind, and you bring everything to your team so that they can take the best decision. I think this is where the most, or how the most efficient leaders are working.
What you've shared with me kind of your approach and what you enjoy. What's challenging for you? What frustrates you? I'm just wondering.
I think the first challenge is when you have 22,000 employees, is how you make sure they understand where the direction is and what do we collectively need to achieve. That's a challenge. It's a challenge because you need first to be organized to reach each one of them. So I would love to reach them personally, but it's not possible, and we have great managers, so we need to onboard everyone so that everybody understands the meaning of what we're doing. And I'm used to say that I don't expect everybody to agree. That's important also to precise, because it's not possible. But at least what I always expect my people or people I'm working with is that they understand why we need to get there, why we take this decision. I think once the meaning is clear, I think it's already the biggest part of the challenge is cleared. But that's a challenge every day. So that's I would say that's by far the biggest one. And the second one, the frustration, is that I'm a bit impatient. So I'd like to move fast, but obviously you need to take time to make sure that people understands. And every time you talk with people, you get a lot of insights about the difficulties they may see, the opportunities also. And that's why, again, back to the first question, the main challenge is to make sure everybody understands where the company needs to go as a whole. And we all have a role to play in that direction, sure.
Sure. You brought up in your younger years, you were difficult, I think was the word that you used.
Challenging, yeah.
Challenging was the word. That's what it was. I want to make sure I said the right word. So what was your biggest challenge? Did you overcome during your childhood or formative years, even through high school?
Actually, I had pretty good grades, so that was probably the challenge for my professor. But I was pretty vocal, pretty loud. And again, challenging the status quo, always asking to do things differently and trying to be the black sheep in the group. So that was a bit curious for me to look after that after a couple of years. But I think it was just the fact I was looking for the meaning of what I'm doing. If you were telling me to do that for the sake of learning this without understanding what is it for, then I was vocal. Always respectful, because I think you can convey a lot of message as long as you're respectful. So I think I hope I've always been respectful, be challenging, but I think that's how I would describe me now after a couple of years when I was younger.
That's interesting to hear that about you, that your wheels were turning then,
yes,
about different ways of doing things, and then again making sure you had a good reason for a rationale for doing certain things. So on a scale of 1 to 10, and because this is the Business of Innovation podcast, we always are looking at how people create and how they bring innovation into their world of work. On a scale of 1 to 10, how creative do you consider yourself to be?
1 to 10, I would say 8 probably.
With 10 being highest, okay.
Yeah, I would say 8. I wouldn't say 10 because that's. I would say 8. Yeah, I think it sounds a good level. I think I'm pretty creative. 10 would be for me too much because I like to try to find the balance between being creative, but at the same time being able also to make that happening. You know, because you can be creative, but if you keep on being creative without putting everything on the ground and making things change, I think it's creativity for the sake of being creative, and that's not really what I'm interested in. So the 8 because it's a mix between creativity and being able to execute and deploy.
How are you capturing when you have a lot of ideas, you're generating a lot of ideas and so forth? How are you capturing those things and holding on to them? Do you mind map, or what do you do in order to bring those forward with you, not lose them? I'm digitally organized, so I have a notebook, an iPad where I just on the spot I capture some ideas, some words that pop up in my mind. And again, after a couple of signals, it helps me to form the idea or the insight I have in mind. And I'm always processing. That's something I never stop doing because it keeps me thinking about what could be next step. I think it's important to try. Again, I'm not telling you I'm doing that every time, but to try to have always 1 or 2 steps in advance, to know what could be the next step once this one is done. Right.
Because it helps you to have consistency over time. Because being creative is interesting, but if you're creative in many directions, you lose your people. Right. And you lose directions.
You do. People can get confused around you.
Exactly. Yes. So that's why if you're just creative like that, it's instability for me. But if you try to set what could be the second step, then you're not doing like that. You say, okay, this is probably more in this direction. Right. And then the team is helping me to form what could be the final idea to implement.
Building on.
Because at the end, it's our idea, and I can tell you, if I have some ideas from time to time, the idea we got with the team together is far more powerful than the initial one I had at the beginning.
And you just started in that direction, but tell me more about what innovation means to you. Because some companies can be a little uncomfortable with innovation. And we've actually done polling and surveys, as we put together curriculum and so forth with larger companies. But what do you think about innovation? What does it mean?
I think innovation first is a mindset. It's a mindset that encourages you to think, to challenge the status quo again, and to think about doing things differently than we were used to do in the past. And you may think that innovation regards products, development, services, or new industrial processes, and you're absolutely right. But for me, innovation is also innovating in the way we care about our people. I agree. In the way we manage projects, in the way we develop people. And there is a lot of innovation here. And this is probably, I'm passionate about innovation globally speaking, but on that part especially, there is so much to be done here.
There's so much that can be done there,
Absolutely.
Isn't there? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that. So do you consider yourself to be a disruptor? It sounds like you are.
Oh, really? No, I don't think so.
No? Okay.
I don't think so. I would say disruptor is a big word.
It's a strong word, isn't it?
It's a strong word, and it could be scary for people to say you're a disruptor.
True.
So that's why I wouldn't consider me as a disruptor. Okay. Challenger, for sure.
Challenger, yeah. Okay.
Disruptor is maybe nice to hear, but I'm not sure I assimilate myself to disruption.
Okay.
Because of the negative part that it could echo in the mind of our people. Disrupting is a strong word.
I appreciate your sensitivity to that word and to how it could be interpreted. One of the things, as I'm talking with you, one of the things that comes to mind is I can sort of imagine that thread of sort of different ways of looking, creativity, all the way through your career, even as you were in sales and marketing, because you talk specifically about we can be creative about the different ways we interface with people and the ways that we help people feel, that we see them and that we see their particular needs and so forth. So I'm imagining that was all the way through your career. That Correct. Way that you look at how can we do this differently? How can we make this better? Is that
Absolutely,
how it served you?
Yes. And again, I've been very fortunate to start my career in sales. And I'm discussing that a couple of times with the people I met in Michelin. I mean, I think now that you have 2 ways to learn about yourself. Is first when you deal with customers, and second is when you manage people. because in both cases, either your customers or your people will behave like you behave with them. And this is how you learn about yourself, because if you behave wrongly with someone, it will give it to you back. And so if I think customers and people are very good mirrors on who you are. And then as a joke, I say later I understood there is a third way, which is when you have kids, because obviously you learn a lot about yourself when you have kids. But I think
yes, you do.
But back to your question, I think I started in sales, so this is where you immediately start to understand what kind of impact you may have on the people you're interacting with, positively or maybe negatively, and then you learn about yourself lots. So this is how I think the creativity came, because it forces you to listen and to understand, observe how they behave with you, and then instead of saying, but how or why she or he is doing that, then first I was asking myself, what did I do to provoke that reaction?
Yeah.
And then I think it's always it's always wise to work on yourself before trying to change the others. I think that's important. That's an important process I encourage each one of us to go through first.
You are an econ undergraduate major, is that correct? You studied economics?
I studied international business and economics, yeah.
And okay, I see, just question. And then your graduate degree is in?
In France, we have a pretty different system.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
But my major was on the international business and management.
And management,
with a minor in economics, if you
Because a
want.
lot of what I'm hearing you say, too, is building the trust.
Yes.
You really build the trust. And there's Paul Zak is his name, I think, but he talks about neuroeconomics, and it's when you have more trust in either a business or even a country, then the economy is better.
Yeah.
Things go up, and that's really what I was hearing you describe. You're making sure there's a good trust there, and that you're treating people well, because that comes back around.
I think you make a very great point, Gail. The only caveat I would bring is that you deserve trust. It's difficult to say you create, because you cannot ask someone.
Good point.
To give you his or her trust. So
Good point.
It's what do you do, or how do you behave over the time and in a consistent manner according to your values, so that at the end your team or your people are feeling comfortable with you, and then they are ready to give you their trust. But that's a long process, and once you have it, it's the best gift you can receive from anyone.
Yeah.
The trust is it's a big word.
That's a very good point. It's definitely a process.
It has a huge value for me also, but it's a question of exemplarity, and I think it's important that we as managers and leaders, we're working very hard on that, because once you have this trust, it's something very strong.
And you know it typically.
And I do my best to deserve the trust of our people. Yes.
What advice do you have for people who do want to be more creative, idea generating, innovative? What advice do you have for them? Anyone?
I would say probably to follow your intuition.
Okay.
I think I would say that some people or most of the people are not creative enough because they don't dare. And they don't dare to follow what they think, what they intuit. Maybe they are not safe enough, to your point regarding trust, to express. But I would encourage each one of your students, each one of us to better follow his or her intuition. We are all different, and we all have things in mind. We see the things differently. And every time we share, even though if it's just an intuition, not facts, it will help your colleague, your peer to rebound on that and say, oh, by the way, it helps me think about this one. And this is, when you get that collective work in a team, this is fantastic. It's exciting. Then you see a team moving, you see a team building, you see a team full of energy. And this is, I think, the only advice I would give to each one of us.
That's great advice. Something, I wanted to ask you something that you really like about yourself and something that you don't.
What I like, I would say, probably the intuition. By observing, by listening to people, I may have some ideas from time that are spot on, and others that are maybe not spot on. But then you get the feedback. So that's probably something I like, because it's a kind of agility, and it feeds again my curiosity. What I like the least is probably my impatience. I don't want to lose too much time, so I try not to go too fast, but from time to time I need to slow down a bit because, again, I want to make sure that we collectively move together, and I don't want to be too far right, left, or ahead or below the team. So that's maybe the notion of time is always a challenge for me.
I have an article I'll share with you from Harvard Business Review on this particular area and how they became so global here because people really did work together.
Yeah.
And the professor writes about 5 cities in the U.S., but she really focuses on Greenville, Spartanburg, and how we started early in the 2000s, really getting involved with a lot of European companies and bringing them here. So I think you'll probably enjoy it. It speaks to a lot of what you just said.
Okay. Oh, with pleasure, yeah.
So tell me what you're curious about now.
My careers?
Yes. What are you curious about now? What's got your attention, and what are you thinking about? I know it's a broad question. But.
Yes. But I think back to what we discussed already, I'm very curious about... There are 2 points, maybe. The first one is one we discussed already, that is how far are we going to be able as humans to manage the technology that is evolving very fast. And again, 10 years ago, I think the technology was the limiting factor. Today, technology can do everything. And now it's a question to us human beings now to get used to that and to work to learn how to work with technology and to accept it and to leverage it and to lead the technology and not to be led by technology. I'm curious about that. And honestly, I have some ideas, but I have no truth. I'm not sure there are truth in this domain, by the way. So that's definitely one thing that I'm very curious about. And yeah, that's part of the question I'm asking myself and observing. I'm reading a lot of articles on that to understand how far can we go with technology. But that's definitely something I would be curious to be now 10 years down the road to see how far are we in that domain. Just to give you one concrete example of that, when I was managing the truck and bus business in the group, we ran a project that is called the platooning. And the platooning basically is that you put different trucks behind each other, so that the first one is opening the road and he has all the capture to read incidents, speed, the type of the road, so everything is captured through the sensors we put on our tires. And the other one can really drive very close to the former one, so to save fuel, and you have massive fuel efficiency on that. And it could be up to 7%, so when you drive 1,000 miles a year, it's a huge savings for the fleet. And what I mean by this limiting, the human being as being the limiting factor, is that everybody agrees on that concept, but guess what? Everybody wants to be the first driver.
Oh, sure.
Because when you're behind, you don't see anything. So you just trust the technology to be plugged on the truck that is in front of you. And this is a very concrete example of what I mean by the human being can be the limiting factor of the technology evolution. And that's something I'm very curious about, how we're going to solve that.
Because the human may resist.
Yes.
And also because it may cause additional stress for the human.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And think about all the debates that we can see or read in the press regarding autonomous vehicles. We have the technology today, but there are so many questions around, okay, but what happens in case of an accident? And what's the role of human being in this case? So I think this is an open question for me here. That's intriguing.
And I think for many, I think we're all kind of looking at the technology and wondering the effect on even children.
Yes. Yes.
And how do we manage?
Yeah. So that's the first one, and the second one is maybe I'm curious about understanding, observing over the coming years how far the border between the professional life and the private life will not further blur, because I think people are, and if you ask the younger generation, they are all looking for meaning. And I think that people are expecting now much more meaning within their professional life than it was the case before. I think before, maybe 10 years, 20 years ago, you could have a different life between your professional and your private life. I think today, the youngest generation, they want to have a meaning in their life. And this meaning could be achieved in their private life, but should be also achieved in their professional life. And I'm curious about understanding what will change in companies. And I think we anticipate that at Michelin, because for us the purpose and the culture are extremely important. But I think this is here for me an open question. What does it mean concretely, and how can we address this question of meaning for the younger generation is extremely important. There is a lot of question regarding sustainable mobility, all the stress that we see on the planet. Mm-hmm. It's important that we hear the younger generation that are probably seeing that with different eyes than we or my generation. Right. Does. So that's part of the meaning. I'm curious about seeing what's going to be the next step.
I think for them, meaning is the new money. Sometimes they'd rather have the meaning, and so certainly companies like yours who are looking at making sure that.
That's a great way to say that. Yeah, it's good formulation.
What's the best advice you ever received?
I think is to be humble, and I was told by my father that everything that is around you is stronger than you anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I think being humble and listening to what you see, listening at people, whoever they are, is a great way to learn. I think that's probably the best advice I've been ever given. Mm-hmm. It's humility is at the end it's a extremely powerful tool because you learn a lot and you don't miss any opportunity to learn, and at the same time you receive a lot of recognition for people to say, thank you for listening to me, but I don't have to thank me. That's just natural to me to hear at everyone and to get advice or inspiration for anybody. So, but that thing, if I was to give an advice to younger people, this is what I would tell him or tell her: be humble and listen to what you see around you.
Very powerful,
I think, and that's why I'm trying to teach to my kids, by the way. And I know it's.
And you have children? You have how many?
We have three kids. Yeah.
Okay. What ages?
They are 19, 17, and 12, and they are. I'm very lucky and fortunate to have a great family. Yeah. There's 3 kids and my wife. We have a great family. So we are trying to teach them together with my wife all what we know now so that they can learn it faster, and then they can learn maybe something else and different in the coming years. Absolutely. That's exciting to try and to start transmitting that to your own kids.
It's a long-term investment, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And again, you see you receive what you gave, so that's interesting.
Was your dad as curious and creative as you? Was he one who looked at that? Was he your mentor in that way?
Not really. No, he was not really creative, but he had strong values, very strong values, and I think I hope I've been inheriting from a lot of his values. Sure. Creativity, I wouldn't say no.
But more of the core values.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you want to be remembered?
Oh.
You're very young, but that's just a question I like.
Sounds a question like I was going to retire. So. Wow. I would say if I could be remembered as a leader that did his best to balance his time and energy to serve customers, to develop our business, and to take care about our employees, I think that would be great. I think this balance across customers, people, and business is very structuring for me for my time. If you put the environmental scope around that, so the planet part, I think these are the 3-4 topics that are the most important to me. And if I was only focusing on people, our customers and our business, I'm used to saying in Michelin that I don't think that each one of them is more important than the 2 other ones. You need to manage them at the same time, at the same level, all the year long, because this is what makes your business and your style sustainable. Mm-hmm. And if you then take care about the planet on top of that for the longer term, I think this is what we intend. We understand at Michelin as the sustainable mobility at the end. So yeah, this is how I would. But let me think about it. I was not prepared to retire. So.
Well, tell me, what question should I have asked you that I did not?
Whether I was a Clemson fan after a couple of months.
Are you a Clemson fan? Are you?
Yes, I was very privileged to be invited by your president. I think it was September. I was assisting the game against Charlotte.
Yes.
So I went there with our family, and for us it was the first time we were experiencing a football college game.
Mm-hmm.
It has been an amazing experience to see 80,000 people. Even though the score, I think after 20 minutes was already done, because I think Clemson won 52-3 or 4.
Yes.
But it was fantastic to see the atmosphere and the global, I would say, energy around the stadium. So it was a great experience for me. So I've been following the season.
Yes.
Been a bit disappointed by the final game, but I mean, being a final is already a big win. But maybe next year they will be there again.
Yes, we're hoping so.
Yeah.
We do have a great team. We have a great coach.
Absolutely.
We really love his values, and I'm so glad you got to spend some time with the president, because he's just a wonderful person. I can see the two of you having a lot in common.
Absolutely. That's a great leader. That's a great leader.
He
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah.
He
Caring
is.
for his people and being very close to the people, globally speaking. Yes. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, that makes my day. I really appreciate you sharing that with me.
No, welcome, Gail. It was a nice pleasure spending this time with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was very inspirational. Thank you for sharing with us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Gail.
Mm-hmm.